America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations, created after World War II to prevent war.
I think it's funny.
And today,
every time Manchin and Romney are shown, they're in sync.
Last year.
It's like a little boy band.
And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. I'm going to stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood.
Fucking Mike Johnson needs his ass fucking kicked.
America stood strong.
He cried like a little bitch when they were coming through the fucking windows.
We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended.
How people like that can
some of you here
have no fucking conscience sickens me.
This is the moment to speak the truth and to
roll your eyes, you little beady-eyed bastard.
Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
And right there, that picture lies the problem. You got one side standing, the other side sitting on their asses,
to join together
smirking.
To defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections. Restore trust in our institutions. And make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we've come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind? A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building a future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccine that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will.
Believe me.
More people
I wish
have
the
health
hell
insurance today.
I could go out that door and work every day like y'all do.
The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years.
You know,
Wages keep going up, inflation
my
keeps
last
coming
job
down.
that I had, I was getting
Inflation
paid
has dropped from 9%
$9
to 3%,
a fucking
the lowest
hour.
in the world, and tending lower.
And you can't say there's a shortage of jobs out
is
there.
and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs,
Just believe
we're
me,
exporting American products and creating American jobs.
fortunately, but unfortunately,
Where they belong.
I was eligible for disability, but just barely.
And it
So
takes
I'm on
time,
the
but
bottom of the
American people are
bucket
beginning
with
to
what
feel
I
it.
make.
Consumer
I'd love to
studies
be
show
going out
consumer
here and
confidence
making
is
15
soaring.
an hour.
Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations,
Ain't shit I
including
can
my
do.
predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past,
Everything
failed to
fucking
buy
hurts.
American. Not anymore.
Sitting,
On my
standing,
watch, federal
laying down,
projects that you fund,
fucking hurts.
like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American
I guess I'll
products
just,
and built by American workers.
Suffer along till one of these motherfuckers
Creating good-paying American jobs.
fixes the system.
And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America.
That's great.
Creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my
I couldn't
policies
even
have
imagine
attracted
making $100,000 a year.
$650 billion in private sector investment.
I wouldn't know what to
Clean
do with
energy,
it. I don't
advanced
even need that
manufacturing,
much.
Creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America.
I don't even need that much.
And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I'm with you. I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernize our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage.
Name drainage.
Providing affordable,
Gotta love name drainage.
affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in family farms, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave.
How's that? Is that a little
Leave home
better
to make a living.
volumized from
It's
CNN?
transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading.
I think I've got the mic
Then I
set
was elected to
correctly
office and we
too,
raised the
where
Belvedere repeatedly
I'm still
with auto
over
companies
the
knowing unions would make all the
CNN
difference.
stream.
The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same. The folks at Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future,
yeah, if you just use one of your headphone earmuffs,
wages,
you can still hear the TV
right here
and
in America.
this. It might twist your brain a little bit till you're used to it, but that's what I do.
Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn.
Oh, it's supposed to be fainting.
Dawn Sim, a third-generation worker,
Joe Biden got
UAW
me
worker
all
at
worked
Belvedere.
up.
Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn
Better
has a
get
good
ready,
job in her
baby.
hometown, providing stability for her family
I'm
and
getting,
pride and dignity as well.
feeling a little frisky.
Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though.
They must have
The
given
middle
him some
class built the
Adderall or
country, and
something.
unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
Be careful there, Joe. You might break something. His osteoporosis kicking in. And fuck him all up. Yeah, he makes Trump look like a metal midget.
Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well.
Well, just like any other bully in the world, they want to get a rise out of you. And basically, by him ignoring Trump until now,
it's wrong, and I'm
just
it.
kept him off the chopping block with Trump. Trump's been busy with Haley and Christie and DeSantis, and a pretty smooth move, if you ask me. Now Trump wants to debate Biden. I don't think that would be wise, especially if they have just policy-based questions. Trump would be fucked. He just knows how to get on there and insult people, and people are getting a little sick of that shit.
But what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone.
Cap Ozempic off at $35 a prescription. We won't need the diabetes medication.
Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money.
And to be quite honest, it's ridiculous.
We cut the federal
you got to pay for insulin.
$160 billion.
We put a ton of money everywhere.
Because Medicare
get raped by these insurance companies.
Exorbitant prices to big pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion.
I'm waiting for him to say something about cannabis.
Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription
Be the
drug
first time a
costs for
president
seniors
ever
on
said it
Medicare at $200
during the
to
State of the Union,
$2,000 a year.
and it's a
Even
good
for expensive
possibility
cancer
he
drugs
will.
that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get an Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, is still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor and many in this chamber want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. We enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent.
Yeah. Mike Johnson looks like
women are more than half our population.
he just is waiting to jerk off.
The research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research.
I mean, what a squirmy looking motherfucker he looks
doing
like.
an incredible job as First Lady. So pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents.
Sorry.
We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass.
I don't know about Joe, but it's starting to get past my bedtime.
2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down.
But I promise I'm going to hang in there. And basically let this run a little bit because I know that Trump
the strongest economy
responses are going to be coming up
we need
quickly
to have the best education system
after
in
the
the world.
speech here on CNN.
And I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year, that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, and not read to, not spoken to very often, start school.
I just wish
kindergarten, or
Crazy
first
Joe
grade,
Davola
hearing-
would
having
come
heard
cruising
a
up and
million
just
fewer words spoken.
tackle Mike Johnson.
Well, studies show that children who
Fucking
go to preschool are
clotheslining.
nearly 50% more likely to finish
Knock
high
him
school,
right out of that
go on to
fucking
earn
chair.
a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I think, well, they were
Well,
discussing
babe,
why I wanted to spend
we
money
still
on
only have
education.
2 listeners.
I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks.
Oh,
Don't hold me
fuck.
the exact
Don't try to
number.
count. Don't count.
And I asked them what they need most.
No
the
math.
CEOs.
Just keep
You've
talking.
had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them, and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore.
Just starting.
Why are you
Just
angry
starting
with me,
once. What?
providing
You
the
lost
opportunity
me.
for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said,
Oh,
think you're
okay.
right.
I got you now.
I want to
God,
expand
that wasn't
high-quality
very,
tutoring and summer learning to
delayed
see that
whatsoever.
every child learns to read by 3rd grade.
When you're not watching videos, I must have enough bandwidth
I'm
to
also
keep up with it.
connecting local businesses and high schools.
You have 6 subscribers.
Get hands-on
Yeah,
experience
subscribers
and
and
path to
viewers are
good-paying
2
job,
different fucking
whether or
things.
not they go to college.
It's because they're
But I want to make sure that
subscribed.
college is more
That's just
affordable.
people who felt sorry for me when I was crying
Let's
about this.
continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs.
Started stomping my
and
feet.
minority-serving
You know how I
institutions,
get.
including Hispanic institutions.
It gets all wiggy.
And I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans.
I'm just waiting
I
for
fixed 2
Biden to
student
call
loan
Trump a
programs that already
cocksucker.
existed.
That'll make my
To
day.
reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4
Yeah, no, he
million
said it in
Americans,
private.
including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota. who
I'm
shared
glad
with
you're
us about
very
Keenan, where are
optimistic
you?
about my
Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so
podcasting
they can go to
bullshit
college.
skills, I guess.
Now he's able to help after debt
I
forgiveness
will.
get his own daughter to college.
You know, I am getting a little lonely down here.
Folks, look. Such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise.
Oh, no. I just heard buttholes puckering clear across the chamber there. Not the teachers.
And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit.
You
Now, let me speak
criminalize
to the
weed,
question
you
of
can pay
fundamental
those
fairness
teachers.
for all Americans.
You know?
I've been delivering real results in fiscally
Who am I?
responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit.
What are you
under
doing,
$3 trillion
showing
by
your
making big
boobies on
corporations very
YouTube?
wealthy finally
I'm
beginning to
telling
pay
you, you
their
should
fair
do
share.
OnlyFans, man. I mean, there's weirdos out there like me that dig chicks like you.
Look, I'm a capitalist.
You
wanna make
could
it
at
to
least
make a
get
million or
cigarette
millions of
money
bucks,
or
that's
something
great.
out of it.
Just pay your fair share in taxes.
Probably enough to fucking retire. Get a, what's he want, a McLaren or something?
It's how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education,
Better
defense,
show
and so
your
much
boobies.
more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut.
Well, you find a belly button.
Benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy, the biggest corporation, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers.
Yeah,
folks at home, does anybody
that's
really
a half a million fucking dollars. He's nuts.
Do you really
You better
think the
start
wealthy big
coding.
corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny.
$400,000.
In fact,
Fuck.
the child tax credit I passed during
Wish
the
I made
pandemic cut taxes for
$400,000
millions of
fucking
working
dollars.
families and cut
Jesus
child
Christ.
poverty in half.
Give me another 1,000. I'd be happy.
Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country.
I
You ain't
agree.
make the tax code fair.
Let's do something about the price of
Let's make
chicken
big
fucking
corporations and the very
McNuggets.
wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%.
Somebody.
So every big corporation finally begins to pay their
Jesus
fair
Christ.
share.
The amount of assholes in the
Also on
room,
that tax
it's
breaks for
hard to
big
pick
pharma,
which
big
one
oil,
you
private jets,
dislike the
massive
most.
executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million.
It's fucking Mike
$1 million
Johnson.
that could be
Oh my
deducted.
God.
They can pay him $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million.
I hope he
End it
gets
now.
run over by a fucking
You know, there are
bus.
1,000 billionaires in America.
I
You know
like
what the average
Kamala
federal
more than I
tax
do
is for
that
those
motherfucker.
billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse.
Take that, Mike Johnson, you piece of shit. God, I hate that motherfucker. Yeah, I wish we could eat healthy too, but we probably still wouldn't.
Just
Not the way you
25%.
fucking shop.
You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do
And if
for
anybody
America.
out there is wondering
Imagine a future
who I'm
with
talking
affordable
to, it's my
childcare.
beautiful
Millions of families
bride
can get- they need
who
to
is
go to
kind
work,
enough to be
grow the
my only
economy.
fucking
Imagine a future with
viewer
paid leave, because no one
and
should have to
is,
choose between
chatting
working and
with
taking
me
care of their sick family member.
via the live chat that none of you are fucking involved in. And I'd like to thank everyone for that.
So they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally
Basically, go
get the
fuck
pay they
yourself.
deserve.
Probably
Tonight,
all over on
let's all
Truth
agree
Social
once
fucking
again
listen
stand
to
up for
Trump's
seniors.
bullshit.
Many of my friends on the other
The
side of
only
the aisle want to
fucking
put Social
guy
Security on the chopping block.
That I guess
If anyone
supports
here tries to cut
Biden
Social
over
Security,
Trump
Medicare, or raise the
in
retirement
my
age,
fucking friends
I
list.
will stop you.
He's gonna stop you. He said that all serious and shit.
The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires.
I know
do.
nobody's listening.
It's not
But you know
fair.
what? This is
We have two ways to go.
semi-therapeutic
Republicans can cut Social
because
Security and give
I
more
don't
tax
feel
breaks
that
to the
I'm talking to
wealthy.
myself,
That's the proposal.
and you don't have to hear it.
Oh no.
Corey doesn't
guys
have
don't
to
want
hear it.
another $2
I'm
trillion
down here in
tax
the
cut?
fucking basement.
I kind of thought that's
Nothing's
what your
fucking
plan was.
around, so you know.
Well, that's
I
good
think
to
I'm gonna
hear.
build me a square little
You're not going
box.
to cut another $2 trillion through the
It's like a
That's good to hear.
studio, so I don't have any external.
I'll protect and strengthen Social
Sounds
Security and
and
make the
shit.
wealthy pay their fair
Oh
share.
fuck! I forgot we were watching the State of the Union. I'm talking to you, not listening. Nobody's listening. This ought to be interesting.
Too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this.
All right. Somebody spoke up about the half-empty bags of fucking chips. And it had to be our fucking president.
You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8.
Yeah, that's one of your fucking fire lanes and empty chip bags that will set my woman off. You're not fucking.
Like $8.30 some dollars.
I don't even want to talk about it now. She's going to blow up the chat.
Credit card companies don't like it, but I'm saving American families $20
every fucking bag of chips she's bought in the last 27 years. Well, you know, more so since the pandemic, it's been more obvious that they're fucking you. Raise the price. Take 10 ounces of fucking chips out. I don't know what weighs or what weighs in fucking bags.
Total price up front, so there are no surprises.
Late fees on credit card.
It matters.
Oh, my woman.
And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as would be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really.
Uh-oh.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border. People pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth it taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now. And if my predecessors
the only problem with the fentanyl
instead of paying
is
politics,
that it's not just coming from across the border.
Join me.
It's coming in the mail.
Congress to pass it.
You can get online and order fentanyl from China.
But apparently, here's what he will not do.
They're not cracking down on it.
I will not demonize immigrants saying
all that synthetic cannabis that was coming across, all those chemicals,
I will not
coming from China.
Separate families.
You know, you've got some shit coming from, you've got them, like, real heroin, real marijuana, you know, shit like that. Not marijuana as much now because it's not lucrative enough.
Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers.
But there's still a market there. But the fentanyl and stuff's coming from overseas. You know, there's nothing they're doing to stop it there.
We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, and ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of every place, from every place on earth.
These people coming across the border are bringing traditional drugs, cocaine, heroin,
when famine struck, like
meth,
my ancestral family in
shit
Ireland.
like that.
Some to flee
The
persecution.
fentanyl's coming from
to chase
overseas.
dreams that are impossible anywhere, but here in America.
You know, that's all policy
America.
too.
And
They
we all
had
come
everybody
from
addicted to
somewhere.
pills
But we're all Americans.
and then outlawed the pills and quit giving it to them. What'd they expect people to do? They're addicted. Of course they were going to get a heroin, now fentanyl and other
We have a
things,
simple
you know.
choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten.
Hey, woman, you want to be a team player?
Left for dead.
Hand me down one of those
Our late friend and former colleague,
7-Ups.
John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him.
I can run up. I'll be up. He's going to keep pumping for a while, so I'll let him go. While Johnson stands up. Go fuck yourself.
Our other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma.
Hold
the
on
daughter
for a
of
second.
gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But 59 years later, there are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering. John Lewis is a great friend to many of us here. But if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Right Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs like the IBW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice, fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. And pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. The year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing, by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence. I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing it. Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oof. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There's his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it.
Sorry.
I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law.
All right, I'm back. What did I miss?
Because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. None of this.
You know, none of those fuckers that are paying attention to that,
none of this violates the Second
that
Amendment.
just boils my blood.
Vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises
Like he just
abroad,
said,
including in the Middle
vilifies,
East.
you know,
I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America.
this ought to be a
This crisis began on October
tinderbox.
7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas.
You know, I hate when they do this because it's just like exploiting these poor people. I mean, maybe they requested to be there or felt they should be there. I mean, I don't know, but these politicians using these victims' families just seems a little off to me.
Around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th.
They're getting tired. Adderall's wearing off.
Excuse me. Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. For the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here.
All right, woman, I'll be down to one viewer.
Israel in wartime.
Me.
But there is
That's
no
all right.
other
I'll
path
talk to myself.
that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live
I'll be fucking
in
around
peace
down
with,
here for a
with
while.
peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America's falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills. But there's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why, with the strong support and help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act, one of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers. Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H. And remind us that we can do big things, like end cancer as we know it, and we will.
Well, that would be spectacular.
Let me close with this. Yay! I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor. Now, other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II, when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working-class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacy inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president of our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president. In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal. It deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are. It's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas. It'll only take us back. You need America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sorry about that.
All right, a very forcefully delivered speech by President Biden, only a few hundred words into it when he made his first of at least a dozen references to Donald Trump, though not by name. He referred to him as, quote, my predecessor, which he did over and over. And like it or not, I have never heard a State of the Union address that had so many references to the man, the political opponent, President Biden, the president, will face on the ballot this November.
Well,
He started, in fact,
we'll
with
try to
two
catch a little bit of the
that can be quite
Trump
awkward for
rebuttal
Republicans to talk about. Issues
about
that
the
separate
State
Trump
of the
from
Union,
much
and
of
then
his party, the middle of his party for
bring
sure,
this shit
such
to
as
an
the need
end.
to
It's
support
been a
Ukraine versus
long
Putin,
ass
the need to oppose the January 6
stream, so
insurrectionists. He
I'll
himself
take it through the
was the
editor
one to invoke
tomorrow.
Reagan's
Cut it
question
down.
to the country in 1980. Are you
Get
better
all
off than you
the
were 4 years ago?
senseless
He brought up the economic and
non
health
or
crisis of COVID.
bullshit out
2020,
of it.
He accused Trump of failing what he called the duty
And,
to care about the
keep
American
what's
people.
pertinent.
Of course,
The
much of the speech was
speech, of course,
other issues, such
and my
as
witty
is the
little
norm for such a
comments and
speech. Areas where polls show
banter
real weakness for him. He
back
offered
and
a new
forth with my
proposal
bride,
to help Americans with high housing costs. He
who was
talked
my
about
only
the need
viewer, by the
for
way,
humanitarian
tonight,
relief
aside from
in
myself.
Gaza. There was a discussion of his
which is
record, of
great.
course, infrastructure
Thank you
projects,
for all the
prescription drug
support.
benefits. His presentation, his enunciation, of course, is not as clear
But
as
anyway,
it
we'll
once
listen
was
a little bit
a decade
here
or
and
two ago. His
see
mind
what
did seem
Trump's been
fairly sharp. He had
pumping out of his
response to a
cocksucker.
pretty harsh moment, some heckling about
Should
the
be
tragic
good.
murder of UGA student Laken Riley. He got her name wrong. He called her Lincoln Riley, but as a general note, he condemned her murder, which was something that people were talking about. Dana Bash, what did you think? You've been to a lot of State of the Union addresses. Do you think that President Biden met the moment?
He certainly met the moment that his members of his party, those who are really upset and worried about this coming election year, and frankly, what would happen if he didn't win another term because of their concerns about who's on the other side of the ticket. They wanted him to be a fighter, and boy, fight did he deliver. Now, there is some criticism already that we're hearing from some Republicans that it was too political, and the retort already is compared to what? I mean, you saw Marjorie Taylor Greene sitting there wearing a MAGA hat. One of the things that you mentioned that he used the word predecessor.
Marjorie Taylor
by our
Greene
count
wearing
in
a
the
hat,
prepared
which is
remarks,
against the
he used
rules,
the word predecessor,
apparently,
Jake,
which,
13
whatever.
times.
But
And
just
that is not only
the
important
rude
because I don't remember that ever happening in
bullshit
this kind of
that
speech,
people do
but because of what predecessor
that are supposed to be leaders
I mean,
and that's
in this country.
what's so striking to me
I
is
mean,
that Republicans,
that's fucking
I think
embarrassing.
because they, their whole thing right now is that Joe Biden is
Sitting
slow,
there with a
he's too old,
MAGA
he
hat on,
can't
running her
do
mouth.
this. They
You
walk
know,
into this trap every time.
what the fuck
that the
are
White
you
House sets for
doing
them. Their
besides
Speaker, Mike
making
Johnson, tried to
ridiculous
counsel them not
comments?
to heckle, not to react in this way, and they did it. And it creates an opening, an opportunity for Joe Biden to react. He said to them, "I know you know how to read." He had a lot
Yeah.
of moments where
He shut her down.
was kind of trolling them. And that worked for him in this speech because that's essentially, at the end of the day, this was a speech about all the things that presidents make speeches about. But the question before Joe Biden today that he needed to answer the most
I'd really
was how does he present to the American
advise
public?
against
Republicans, it seemed to me,
Trump
really
wanting
handed
to
him
debate
a golden
Biden.
opportunity on multiple occasions during the speech to do exactly what his
Like I
aides
said,
wanted him to
I
do,
see
which was
Biden
show some
on
fight,
the
show
policies
his ability to
ripping
react in
his
the
ass
moment.
out.
He likes to ad lib. It's not always. It doesn't
Because
always work out
regardless
well for
if
him.
it's
He did it a
comes
few
out
times
slow
tonight,
or
without
whatever,
any major gaffes.
it's about
and I
policy.
think that was ultimately the bar that his
It's about
aides
what
wanted
you
him
can
to
do, what
The
you
American
can't
people
do,
settled this in 244
and how you
days,
plan
but
on
it was clear
fucking
to
doing
me
it.
from the beginning and the
And
end
Trump
that
just
he and
wants to
his
get out
team,
there and fucking just yell.
whether you like it or
You're
not,
gonna
at
get
home,
over there
understand the
with
challenge.
world leaders and
This
just
is the
run your
36th
mouth
of
like
these for me. State
like
of
Trump
the Unions
does.
or presidential addresses
That's
at the beginning.
fucking
First one being
insane.
1989. Never
No
heard one so
reason in the
political.
world
Never
that
heard
should
one that is
be
such a campaign speech. But what
acceptable
do Republicans say
by
about Joe
anyone.
Biden? He is weak, and he has weakened
Anyone.
America. And he doesn't have the vitality, the alacrity, the vigor to be the president of the United
Hopefully
States.
they move on
He
to
came
some
out
of
hitting
Trump's
on
comments
Ukraine.
here
Stand up to Russia. Be strong,
shortly.
Republicans. Don't be weak. Right at the weakness
I
argument,
trust
he's weakened America, that he's
CNN
personally
the
weak.
way they
and when
hate
right
Trump
after January 6th,
normally.
said, I'm going to bury the lies.
They be
And took the
posting-
heckling for it, and then turned to an issue
posting
that
that
Democrats think
shit
is absolutely
that
critical
he
for them,
said and,
IVF, reproductive freedom,
talking
the
shit
broader
on
issue.
him.
And he did it all with fight. He did it with punches. He came out
Which
punching
is
and
kinda
came out
fun,
swinging right from the beginning. Then
yeah.
he did the traditional State of the Union laundry list.
It's a
and then
little
he came
old,
back at
too.
the end and took on the age issue. Does it work? Who knows? But he tried a little humor. He took the back and forth from the floor. It was clear to me that they
Yeah, I mean, I've
understand what the
noticed
Republicans
lately
have done
with
and are going to try
the
to
way,
do to him by saying
CNN's
he's personally
been
not up to it,
baiting a
he's not
civil
strong, and
war.
he's weakened America. They came out to fight.
Well, and I think
Since
one of his
Trump's
weakest issues that he
been
pulls
bitching
on
about
is
the
immigration
election,
and the
you
border.
know.
Obviously, he knows that. It came up later in the speech.
They're
But
baiting
Senator James Lankford might have delivered him
a
one of the
civil war.
strongest moments of the entire
getting,
speech, where they were
you know,
talking about that bipartisan border
Trump
deal. He went into
followers
the
all
specifics
pumped up
of what was in that
with
agreement
these
being formed
polls and
by one of the most conservative senators
talking up
in
on
the
him
Senate
about
who
how
was
he's
negotiating
destroying
that.
Nikki
And
Haley
Senator
in his
Lankford mouthed,
primaries.
that's
and,
true, as President Biden
that's
was speaking.
true.
And then the
Yeah,
other
talking about the
moment,
details of what was in the bill.
talking about the details of
You
what was
have
in the
to
bill.
look.
The other moment where at the beginning we
Biden's
watched
getting like
Congresswoman
80
Marjorie
and
Taylor Greene
90%
and President
of the
Biden had a
Democratic
button that they
vote.
had made that talks about his
So,
border crisis, as you quoted what it said
Trump's
on the button earlier,
getting
Jake. And she said,
60,
after
70,
saying Lincoln Riley's name,
sometimes
and then he pulled,
50%
held the button up. He seemed to be
of
relishing
the
those moments
Republican
that he had
vote
last year, the back
with
and forth
Haley
with
in the
Republicans,
race.
and was trying
And
to
people who
recreate
vote
that
for
and kind
Haley
of take it head on.
relishing
were
and
voting for
prepared
Haley
right? I mean, there were some
because
that
she wasn't Donald
clearly
Trump.
understood on immigration.
So,
You're going to get some feedback. I mean, you could see
you've got a
how it was
bunch of
playing
people
out as
now
they rehearsed it in Camp David and the like.
who,
John,
more than
the thing
likely,
about it
I'm
being a
saying
political
half
speech, there's
will
no doubt
go
about it.
back
It
to
is
voting for
it
Donald
is a
Trump just
re-election
because
speech.
they refused to vote for Joe Biden.
But
But if you put that 20% to Joe Biden,
nothing is as it once was.
he's
going
gonna
to
stomp Trump's
And I
ass.
think this speech, the demeanor from the folks in the House,
Y'all
the
aren't gonna
president
believe
going
it.
into raw politics,
It's going to be a bigger
him
victory
calling out
than
his
what
pre-
it was
calling
the
out his
first time.
predecessor all these times.
And y'all are
Yes,
still
that's
going to not
unprecedented.
believe
It's
it
also
because
unprecedented
Trump is
to be running against
etched
a guy
that
who once
into your
served as
brains.
president, who you defeated, who's trying to come back. It's also unprecedented, that he's facing all these
you
trials
have to
and what
believe
occurred in this very chamber on January 6th. All these things
somewhat
are, and I
in
just
the
think
system.
if we apply our sense of what State of the Union addresses have been,
We're a country
it's not,
made up of
that's
laws.
just not where our politics are anymore.
Sometimes
And
those
so
laws
while I
are
know the
against
Republicans
us,
will criticism
whether it's a
criticize him for
freedom
being
of
political
belief,
here,
a
it
crime,
seems to me he actually gave
but
a speech
sometimes we're
that is
on
of
what
this
question.
we would
I
call the
agree.
right
I
side of the
agree.
law,
100%.
Compared to what?
Yeah,
where we
but-
get
But it's often Joe Biden in the past
retribution
who has tried to go back to those
for a
moments.
wrong against
I remember
us.
those moments. Mitch McConnell's my friend. We can do bipartisanship deals.
So,
Joe Biden tonight realizes we don't live in that world
you
anymore.
have
So
to
in
live
the past,
by
he's
those
tried to
laws.
go back to that world. He's realized that
Everybody.
world doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, Jamie Gengel, is what David touched on the preparedness.
Right now, with what Trump has,
He wanted,
aside from everything
and was
presidential,
prepared for the
we would
Laken
already be
Riley
in jail
moment.
for
Again, Laken Riley, the
the
UGA
documents,
student tragically murdered by a Venezuelan undocumented
sedition, if
immigrant
you
who should
will,
not have been in this country and should not
the
have been
insurrection they call
free.
it.
He obviously had
The
been
Stormy
told
Daniels
they are gonna bring
bribe
this up.
is
This
fraud.
wasn't news, by the way. I mean, like we
He's
all
going to
learned
end
a
up
few hours
facing
ago that
charges with the
Marjorie Taylor
fraud.
Greene was going to have these pins.
That was a
and
civil
also,
case
obviously, this has been
eventually
a
because
horrible story in the news.
there's
and
no
one that
choice.
a
You
lot of
can't
people have been
not
talking about,
charge
including
him
Republicans.
with
And
criminal fraud.
He not only did he say her name
With a civil case like that,
he
judge
mentioned
that judgment
that he
against
had
him.
lost children too.
So
He lost his daughter when he was in
he
his 30s. He
defames
lost his
E.
son,
Jean
Beau,
Carroll
a
every
few
3
years
or
ago.
4 days,
Talked about their
and that's
misery.
costing him
Repeated
83
something Marjorie
million.
Taylor Greene said about like killed by an illegal.
And that
although
tab's
he's already
running.
getting some blowback
So
from immigration advocates.
he's
about using the
basically
term
going.
illegal,
This
to
is his
talk about
moonshot.
undocumented. And then he talked about
Before he dies,
how
this
the
is going to be his
compromise on the
legacy.
border
He's
would
trying
have
to
disincentivized people
install
crossing illegally,
himself
because instead of staying
and his
around for 5 or
family
6 years until their hearing, it would be
as
6
the
weeks, and
ruling
so it would
family of
stop
this
the
country.
Incentivization of crossing the border.
So,
talked immediately about it.
Believe
and then
that
said,
if you want,
do you
but
want
I
to debate
mean,
the border, or do
the
you want
fact
to
that
fix
you
the border?
believe what
I think this
he
is a
tells
critical
you,
point because, Jake, you're absolutely right. There
you
is
might
no
want to consider
question
what I'm saying.
They prepared for those moments.
And like
in
I
the
said,
White House.
I think
There is also
Biden
no
makes us look
question
weak
that Congress, the Senate,
physically.
this is Joe Biden's home, and he
You know,
likes to spar in moments
I-
like this. We have
I think
seen
his-
that is classic
mental
Joe
acuity
Biden. Yes,
is
he's prepared on
well
specific
beyond
topics,
anything Donald
but
Trump
from the-
wants to
from
fuck
the very
with
beginning
during a
where
debate.
He said, "Funny if
I don't think it
if
would
I was
work
smart,
out well
I would
for
go
Trump.
home now," and everyone laughed. To the end where he said, "I'm almost wrapping
So,
up."
come on,
That's what we
CNN, I'm
see
tired
with
of
Joe
talking.
Biden. I want to point to a couple
wanna
of
see
things.
what,
I heard from a Democratic source
old
who
Trump
I-
had to say, but
we've
I
been
want to
told
go
many
off
in the
this
White House
screen.
was worried about how Joe Biden would
So
do
anyway,
today,
you'll have to
and the
listen to
source
me
said
or listen
he
to them for a minute.
underpromised and over delivered the two things that we never like to talk about: high energy and his age. He addressed his age. He came across with high energy. All the Republicans, I have a phone full of Republicans saying that was a campaign speech, but even they admit that he delivered.
So let me just say, I misspoke. I said something about Laken Riley. She was found on the University of Georgia campus. She is a nursing student, but she's not a University of Georgia student per se, and I apologize for forgetting that, for confusing that detail. Anderson?
Jake, thanks very much for the team here in New York. Van Jones, you were watching this closely. What did you think?
Man, Van Jones.
Very proud.
This dude's great.
Proud. Look, strong at the beginning, strong on Ukraine, strong about January 6th, strong in the middle. He was he put his chest out to those Republicans. He ain't scared of the Republicans. He said, "Hey, let's fight right now about the border. Let's fight right now about these tax cuts for gazillionaires." Strong at the end, owning his age issue. I thought that was a remarkable, fiery, powerful, vigorous guy, and I think it gives people a lot of confidence that this guy might be able to go the distance. And by the way, he's still standing there talking to people. He came in slow. He talked to everybody. He was strong at the beginning, strong in the middle, strong at the end.
Ashley, what did you think? Because before the speech, a lot of folks on this panel were saying that there were two missions, not only about his agenda and what his second term would look like, but perhaps even more importantly, is he all there? Is he vigorous?
Yeah, I mean, we said it was also about performance, right? And I think tonight he showed that he could give a very long speech, and if you come for me, don't come for me unless I send for you. It was one of those moments. And so I was getting texts throughout the speech from progressive leaders, from folks who were during the speech talking with black men in Michigan, and they were saying, I can get behind this agenda. I will say, I did hear from some voters on the Gaza issue who were unsatisfied. But there is still eight more weeks, and I think that there is an opportunity. But tonight, I think Joe Biden did what he was supposed to do.
He talked about Snickers and snack chips before he ever got to the border. He was obsessed with his political rival.
Didn't get the cannabis thing out of him.
With the condition of the American people, it was so weird.
Concerning the
This guy
fentanyl issue.
lectures us all on unity, the soul of the nation, and he gives the most
And like I said, I'm not saying cannabis
convention speech in place of a State of the Union
is guaranteed to
I've
get
ever
people
heard.
off that shit.
It's the literal opposite
But it
of
can
unity.
help as a
It's so
substitute
partisan.
instead of
He's obsessed with taunting
Suboxone and
Republicans. It's
methadone
not
or other
statesmanlike.
opiates
And let me say one thing
that
on
they
Israel.
hand out to
A little
people.
too much.
I mean, it
Gotta
just
hear
keeps
both
people as a
sides
customer and a
on Israel
patient.
and Hamas for me. No, you don't
Let
have to hear
people
both
smoke
sides.
weed. I mean,
Israel's
my
our
God.
ally.
And then
Hamas is
use
the
it
enemy.
as
He
a
lied
preventative.
about our ally and implied
Prescribe
that they are
cannabis
not delivering
in whatever form
humanitarian
that
aid. They are
works.
delivering humanitarian aid. I
Whether
do
it's
not like
smoke,
every
and
week
they'll
this
just
administration is going
decriminalize
back
it.
on our
Leave
commitment to
people
Israel,
alone.
and it was in this speech, and it's going to get
And you
worse.
create an
I would just say this
industry
too,
far beyond recreational and medical sales,
loudness doesn't
which are
equal
milking
energy, right?
people
It was
that
the
are sick.
loudest State of the Union. I
Just
just turned
like
my
we did with
IFB down
pills.
because my ears were bleeding. Right? To me, he seemed like.
What's interesting is both of you guys who are Republicans are not talking about. God, he didn't seem like he knew where he was.
No. Dave, let me just finish. He seemed like Walt Kowalski. You talked about this earlier. He seemed like Walt Kowalski in Gran Torino, screaming at kids, "Get off my lawn!" Like an old guy screaming at kids.
My guess is that when he got into the heart of his agenda, the things that you ridicule about the cost of food and price gouging and so on, I bet you that scored with a lot of people. I think that the populist economic agenda is a powerful thing for him. Look, there are parts of it. I'm not sure that the attacks all landed exactly. They may have landed well in that room for sure, and they landed well with base voters for sure. I'm not sure with those swing voters that they landed as well. But I do think that the agenda I also, by the way, think that probably what doesn't land well is his proclamation that our economy is the envy of the world, and that inflation and is under control.
David, you would also raise the question of his performance and the importance of that. I'm wondering what you.
Listen. I think that he passed the first test, which was he did command the room. He was in the moment. He did respond. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene walked right into a trap there. It was kind of fun to see.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
think
Marjorie
this was
Taylor
his,
Greene.
This was his.
She's a
this
fucking
was his
idiot.
setting, and he did
That was
very
great.
well. And I think his people will be really pleased.
Listen.
Well, listen, Donald Trump did Joe Biden a huge favor. He set the expectations on the floor. Joe Biden basically had to show up and not keel over on the dais tonight, and he massively outperformed that. Just objectively, there was some stumbling, there was the coughing, and he's prone to sometimes a stutter, but he did show energy. He showed the ability to get through a long speech. Now, I think he was smart to start with setting the stakes very high at the top, to talk about Ukraine, to talk about the threat to democracy. Where he starts to wane is in the middle. When he's talking about the economy, it was like patting himself on the back, sort of, it's actually better than you feel that it is. The border, the substance of it was quite good. That should have been at the front end of the speech, the #1 issue for a plurality of voters. But overall, I think most people are going to say, that looks like a man who's up to the job.
Let's go back to Aaron on Capitol Hill. Aaron.
All right, thanks, Anderson. All right,
Okay.
you both know him so well. You've been here preparing for 3 State of the Union speeches with him. What did you just see?
I thought that was terrific. That was vintage Joe Biden. He gave an incredibly forceful performance, which, as everyone's been discussing, was what he needed to do tonight. He needed to show that vitality. He showed how comfortable he is in this environment. We were talking about that before he started to speak. He loves the Congress. He loves the Senate. He loves the opportunity to go back and forth. He loves the House. And so this was really a moment for him to show command, which you saw him do as he was going back and forth on immigration and a couple of other issues. You know, he really likes to engage. And so him having the moment, having the opportunity to do that, you really saw kind of the best of him. You saw somebody who was on top of his game and very comfortable. And I think that was probably the single most important thing. You know, the other thing I thought was interesting is that he used a lot of language that really painted Trump and the Republicans as weak. I mean, he said, you know, right at the top, you know, we're not going to bow down in talking about supporting Ukraine.
I was writing that down, like in all caps,
right?
right?
We're not going to.
Yeah.
It was really, he did a lot to sort of frame the Republican position on a lot of issues as weak. He obviously, you know, he talked about you can't only love your country when you win. And so I thought it was interesting that he kind of wove that, you know, narrative through the speech, because that's obviously, you know, that's an important piece of kind of the case that he's making.
And you, Evan, having chronicled his career and
I'm
spent
just
so
waiting
much
to
time
see
with
Trump
him in recent days.
fucking comment.
Back to your description that time, right? That you felt his mind was there, but his voice was clotted.
Yeah.
His voice was not clotted tonight.
No, this is a guy who came out with a very clear intention to show Americans what he thinks people around him see. And this is what you often hear described from people who've spent time with him behind the scenes. Look, he got out there, and from the very beginning, he was comfortable in that chamber. He wanted to get up there on the lecture. He was not rushing. He was spending time with people. And then he gets up there and he begins to speak. And what you heard, I think this is very important, was a kind
this will
of,
be fun editing
comfort
all
with the
this
issues and a level
bullshit,
of emphasis. The clear thing was, if you turned off the
Oh,
sound
well, I'll
on
have
that
to go
speech,
through
you
and
just
do it.
watch that person at the
Yeah.
lectern, you wouldn't have had
Get
a lot
this
of
shit
questions
cut
about
down
whether
to
they
a-
were in command of that chamber, whether they were in command
About
of the
15
material.
minutes worth of
and
shit.
very many people out there are going to be
So that'll
seeing that
be
speech
interesting.
in that.
My
They're looking
first
to see, am I
foray
reassured? You know, the
into
number of
the
people who said to
editing
me in the
part.
days before this speech,
So-
I'm nervous. I'm nervous because any moment could become fodder on social
figure
media.
all
There
that
was
shit
no
out, I
moment
guess.
tonight that becomes,
It'll-
you know,
expect
a
it
day-long
to be
story.
half-assed,
This is-
trust
that,
me.
that speech
And
speaks
the
for itself.
ad-libs
As long as you can hear everything, I'm
but
good
yet
with it.
Would,
I don't need no fancy
circle
titles
back
and
purposefully.
Exactly.
interludes
Exactly. And you asked earlier if he was nervous.
shit like
Absolutely
that. So
All right, Jake.
I'll be okay.
Thanks, Aaron. And we're watching President Biden make his way out of Statuary Hall. And it is definitely a moment where he seems to be, I'm sorry, making his way out of the House chamber is definitely a moment where he seems to be relishing what he just did. He seems to be enjoying it. A lot of congratulations from Democrats, Daniel.
You know, speaking of Democrats, while this speech was going on, I was getting texts from a couple of senior Democratic leadership aides saying, you know, what Republicans did was lower expectations.
Let's interrupt right now. We are going to listen to the Republican response.
Ooh, the
Senator Katie
Republican
Britt of
response.
Alabama.
Good evening, America. My name is Katie Britt, and I have the honor of serving the people of the great state of Alabama in the United States Senate. However, that's not the job that matters most. I am a proud wife and mom of 2 school-aged kids. My daughter Bennett and my son Ridgway are why I ran. I'm worried about their future and the future of children in every corner of our nation. And that's why I invited you into our home tonight. Like so many families across America, my husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive. One thing was quite clear, though. President Biden just doesn't get it. He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off, our communities are less safe, and our country is less secure.
Wow.
I
What
just
an
wish
actress.
he understood what real families are facing around kitchen tables just like this one. You know, this is where our family has tough conversations. It's where we make hard decisions.
He's
It's
talking
where
about
we share the good, the bad,
cutting
and
taxes
the
for
ugly
everybody
of
under
our days.
$400,000.
It's where we laugh together.
Which
and
is
it's where
about
we hold each other's hands and pray for God's
70,000
guidance.
more,
And many nights, to
80,000
be honest,
more than I make
it's where
in a
Wesley
fucking
and I
year.
worry.
And you're gonna sit
I know
here
we're
and
not
fucking
alone.
sigh
And so tonight,
and fucking
the
argue with
American
what he
family
said?
needs to have a
You're an
tough
asshole.
conversation.
Your husband's an
Because
asshole.
the truth
You're
is,
probably raising
we're
little
all worried
assholes.
about the future
So
of
go
our
fuck
nation.
yourself
The
with your little
country we know and
cross
love seems to be
and your
slipping
little
away, and it
fucking
feels
chia
like the
pet
next
back in the
generation will have
background.
fewer opportunities and less
You're a
freedoms
dumb
than we
twat.
did. I worry my own children may not even get a shot at living their American dreams.
What's
My
that?
American dream allowed me, the daughter of two small business owners from rural Enterprise, Alabama, to be elected to the United States Senate at the age of 40. Growing up,
Yeah.
sweeping the floor at my
Wonder how
dad's
many
hardware
dicks you
store and
suck.
cleaning the bathroom at my mom's dance studio,
You're fucking
I
full of
never
shit.
could have imagined what my story would entail. To think about what the American dream can do across just one generation.
This bitch is
in
trying to
just
sell us
one
diabetes
lifetime.
medicine.
It's truly breathtaking. But right now,
Oh.
the American dream has turned into a nightmare.
Oh my God.
For so many families. The true, unvarnished state of our union begins and ends with this. Our families are hurting. Our country can do better. And you don't have to look any further than the crisis at our
Boy,
southern
if
border
this bitch don't
to
look like a
see it.
paid fucking spokesman.
President Biden inherited the most secure border of all time. But minutes after taking office, he suspended all deportations, he halted construction of the border wall, and he announced a plan to give amnesty to millions. We know that President Biden didn't just create this border crisis. He invited it with 94 executive actions in his first 100 days. When I took office, I took a different approach. I traveled to the Del Rio sector of Texas. That's where I spoke to a woman who shared her story with me. She had been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. She told me not just that she was raped every day, but how many times a day she was raped. The cartels put her on
Good
a
thing she didn't get
mattress
pregnant.
in a shoebox
She wouldn't be able
of
to
a
get a
room,
fucking abortion.
and they sent men
Wonder how many times she
through
was pregnant.
that door
How many kids did she have?
over and over again for hours.
That's a
and
believable
hours
story.
on end.
Raped numerous times a day,
We wouldn't
didn't
be
manage
okay
not
with
to
this
get
happening
pregnant.
in a third world country. This is the
So,
United States of America.
I think we can call
And it
this
is
bitch
past
full of
time,
shit.
in my opinion, that we start acting like it. President Biden's border policies
Oh my
are
God,
a
President
disgrace.
Biden's border
This crisis
policy.
is despicable.
Oh my
And the truth
God,
is, it
it's
is almost
fucking me in my
entirely
butthole.
preventable.
Jesus Christ.
From
Y'all believe this bullshit?
poisonings to horrific murders. There are empty chairs tonight at kitchen tables just like this one because of President Biden's senseless border policies.
Oh my God.
Just think about Lake and Riley. In my neighboring state
Why
of
aren't the
Georgia,
Republicans
this
doing anything about it?
22-year-old
There was a bill on the fucking
university
table and you all
went
said
out on
no
a
because
job
Trump said
and she
no.
never got the opportunity to return home. She was brutally murdered by one of
Because
the
Abbott put him on a bus and
of
sent him to
illegal
fucking
border
Georgia.
crossers
You dumb
President
fuck.
Biden chose to release into our homeland. Y'all, as a mom, I can't quit thinking about this. I mean, this
Oh,
could have been
Jesus
my
Christ.
daughter. This could have been yours. And tonight, President Biden finally said her name. But he refused to take responsibility for his own actions. Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only
This is
have
fucking
yourself
unbelievable.
to blame. Fulfill your oath of office. Reverse your policies. End this crisis and stop the suffering.
You know what I'd do? I would go ahead and do that. I would
we know
reverse those
that
policies
President Biden's
immediately
failures don't stop
before
there.
the election, and we'll
His
see how it
reckless
how it
spending
works.
dug our economy into a hole and
Then there's
sent
no
the
reason to
cost
elect
of
Trump,
living
right?
through the roof. We have the worst inflation in 40 years and the highest credit card debt in our nation's history. Let that sink in. Hardworking families are struggling to make ends meet today.
And 90% of the people that own those credit card companies are
They're also
Republicans.
struggling to how to plan
Go
for
look it up.
tomorrow. The American people are scraping by, while President Biden proudly proclaims that Bidenomics is working. Goodness, y'all, bless his heart, we know better. I'll never forget stopping at a gas station in Chilton County one evening. The gentleman working the counter told me that after retiring, he had to pick up a job in his 70s so that he didn't have to choose between going hungry or going without his medication. He said, I did everything right. I did everything I was told to do. I worked hard, I saved, I was responsible. He's not
This
alone.
is almost too much to
I
watch.
hear similar concerns from fellow
To
parents,
where
whether I am walking with my
I'm
friends
about
or whether I'm
one of
at
her
my
twat
kids'
hairs
games.
away from shutting this down
let's be
because this is
honest,
so much bullshit.
It's been a minute.
You can't
since Joe
handle
Biden
this
pumped
shit.
gas,
This is crazy.
ran a carpool, or even pushed a grocery cart. Meanwhile, the rest of us see our dollar.
Well,
and
Donald
we
Trump
know
does
it
all
doesn't
that.
go as far.
Give me a
We see it
fucking
every
break,
day.
lady.
And despite what he tells you, our communities are not safer. For years, the left has coddled criminals and defunded the police, all while letting repeat offenders walk free. The result is tragic, but foreseeable. From our small towns to America's most iconic city streets, life is getting more and more dangerous. And unfortunately, President Biden's weakness isn't just hurting families here at home. He is making us a
Well,
punchline on the world
we got to
stage.
shut this down because it's
Look, where
just
I'm
getting
from,
fucking ridiculous
your
with this
word
bitch.
is your bond.
So thanks for not listening. I
The
appreciate
president
it.
has demonstrated that America's word